Alright, welcome to video 2 of the How to MMD series, or MMD Masterclass, or whatever I end up naming this. This will be your introduction to, or your explanation of how to install the things you'll need for at least, the main part of this class, video series, whatever. So let's just go ahead and get started. The things you will need are shown here. You don't need all of these, but you will want, first of all, you'll want to install Mmd and Pmx. These are the most recent versions, and I'll show you where to get those. When you install Mmd, it comes with a section for your WAV files, so the music, I'm not even entirely sure what that's supposed to contain. Your poses, your motions, the models, your backgrounds, and then your accessories or your effects. Mmd does come with a few models. They're just very generic, kind of old looking models, but it comes with it, so good to know. I personally just forget that stuff is in user file, so I just have mine again out here. So I can go into models. For instance, my models folder is organized by series, so you've got like Code Geass, you've got Gintama, you've got, really I don't care about any of the Honkai Impact characters except for Kiana, but I do have a few other ones in there. They're just under Kiana. Kimetsu no Yaiba, so I do them by series. There's also an assorted models folder where you got some from games or memes or just anime characters that I just wanted one character. So I just have the one model for them. So you can, obviously you can organize it however you want to, but I'm just giving you an overview. For my backgrounds, I have, there's a few places you can find full-on city maps, and they're pretty big. So I've got those in their own folder. I've got stages as far as like a physical stage to perform on. I've got places, which is more just like a scenic location sort of a thing. There's panoramic stages, which I am not entirely sure how to use. I've seen a few guides on them. It's not worth the effort at this point. Extra includes things like sky domes. This had a few props, which I really should move, but whatever. So yeah, you can organize it how you want to, but these are kind of the files you'll want, especially effects, models, motions, and then when you install these, those will pop up. I also highly recommend getting a files, so any of your save files, you can find them all in one place. It's kind of good to know. I guess while we're here, we can talk about it. MMD has two save files. There's the EMM, which is technically, whoops, you can't see that. That's way too big. You still can't see it. Anyway, the EMM file, as you can sort of see, tells you what files you actually used. So like accessory came from, well, again, you can't really see it that well, but the first accessory, there's the models, and then there's the other accessory. So I've got all of these, and you can see the file path that it goes to find them. So this one used a lot of fake characters. Tomoe, Ishtar, Kiyohime, Ana, Lakshmi Bai, I guess. I'm really bad at that kind of stuff. Then we went down, we had all of these effects and what their settings were. This one used, looks like Ray MMD, so you've got these extra effect options. So yeah, your EMM files are a secondary save file so that you know what you used, and where it was stored at the time. If you move it after you save the file, then it's not going to automatically update, that kind of stuff. But if you keep your stuff organized and in one place, then your EMM file will say, here's just a text file of where everything is and what you used. The PMM file is the actual save file. So if I double click this, it's going to try and open the whole thing. If things are not named, like let's say I renamed a folder that, like for instance, in here we had that I used Ishtar, right? So if I renamed the Fate folder, I'm going to have a lot of things that it says, hey, I don't know where to find this anymore because I was expecting a Fate folder. So that's where the EMM comes in handy. It's like, Well, it's looking for a model. Which model is it looking for? Oh, yeah, I changed the fate folder to say Fate Grand Order or something like that. So it helps you keep track of things even if the save file doesn't know where to actually find things. The EMM file is a backup for you, the person, which I really like. I think that's incredibly helpful. So yeah, just know that when you save something, you'll have the identical name in two of them. One's a text file that tells you where everything is. One's a save file that tells the program where things were. So that's about files. Again, just keep your stuff organized, and that's kind of it on how you want to keep things set up. Now, as far as actually installing stuff, there's one main site you want to go to. That is learnmmd.com, the ultimate resource for getting an idea of how to do pretty much anything in MMD. So look, you have motion files, you have environment files, you have all these kinds of things just on the front page that says, hey, here's information. You've got how-tos, you've got troubleshooting, you've got all kinds of stuff. So definitely a good resource for beginners. And, even if you're just going along your way saying, hey, how do I do something? If you Google, like, let me do an example. We'll talk about this more later, but let's say you have this kind of an error. Hey, d3d9.dll is missing. MMD. Guess what results pop up? LearnMMD.com. LearnMMD.com. And lots of YouTube videos about how to fix your problem. So, if you run into a problem with MMD, Google it. You will probably find LearnMMD.com and other YouTube videos about people who have had this problem before. So, that's very helpful, isn't it? And most of these will end up being articles. So if I click on it, this isn't so much installation as this is just helpful advice from someone who's been there. Always Google your problems with MMD because someone somewhere has had it. And so now you see, hey, here's a error. You need to do this. Here's what it kind of means. And you can go down and you'll have comments. So, Learn MMD is a very good starting place if you have questions or if you don't understand something, let's say that I say or someone on YouTube says, then you can come here and have it worded a different way. Maybe they go into more detail, that kind of thing. The one we want to go to right now is downloads. Because guess what? They have all the downloads we need. So the newest version of MMD is 9.32, I believe. Yes, 9.32. As of, I think, December 2020 or maybe 2019. So here you go. You can either click the 32-bit version if you have a 32-bit computer. You can click the 64-bit version if you have a 64-bit computer. You can just find that in your system's properties. Again, they have instructions. They have zip files if you prefer to do that. So here's where you download MMD. You just install it wherever you want to. It's very simple. And when you install it, you will have that MMD folder that I showed you, which was, what am I doing? You will get this. When you, let's say you extract the zip file or use an installer, you will get something like this. I have a 64-bit machine, so mine's the 64-bit version. When you install it, you probably won't have all of this, but you'll have some of it. The reason I have all of it is because there were extra problems with mine and extra features that I ended up getting, which we'll talk about in a later video. This is an old version, but, it's always nice to have a backup, especially, let's say this one says it runs great on Windows XP. So, hey, if you have a computer and the normal MMD isn't working so well, maybe try an older version. So the missing DLL that we talked about, that's we can show it again, d3d9.dll. I had that issue. I had to get it. I had to download it. Guess what? DirectX 9, d3d9. It's actually DirectX number 9 DLL file. They do have a Google Drive page that has it. If you have probably the higher version, which would be D3, D11, or something along those lines. Unfortunately, guess what? Mmd requires very specific files that are no longer distributed by default, so you'll have the missing DLL problem. You need to install the older versions, basically. It won't overwrite what you have, it'll just be there in addition to it. So, again, download the page, very helpful. If you have a problem, also Google it, very helpful. So you may need this. I wouldn't download it unless you start by downloading Mmd, right? And then if you have a missing DLL, then download that, and it'll, when you click on any kind of an article related to this, it'll tell you where to put it. I believe I had to put it right here with the main file, so mmd and the DLL's right with it. So that's that. Again, download it if you need it. You will want a English version of the Pmx editor. PMD is the older version of PMX. It's not quite as, what do you call it? PMD files could only be so big. PMX expanded that by like 1 million. So they're basically the same thing. They're a 3D model, but PMDs had limitations that PMX does not. So these two are kind of interchangeable names, PMXE or PMDE as the name of the editor. But yeah, so you'll want that. They recommend the 039 version, which is probably the newer version since this one's 0254F. But this will be a link to his DeviantArt page, I'm sure, which is another great resource for things, is DeviantArt. We'll go into that a little bit more later. But he's got a lot of translations for different versions. 054. He's got an original Japanese version. He's got these things if you need them, which again, you'll just have like a DLL error or something along those lines, and it'll say, hey, you need to make sure you have Visual C++ 2010 redistributable, which happens to have that DLL in it. Some annoying stuff like that. If you need a way to get your ziprar 7z files correct, you can do those. Or there's another way I'll show you when I get to that. So yeah, downloading stuff. You will want the MMD, you'll want the PMXE, and then any DLLs or any run files that you need. Just download them if you need them. Other things you'll want MME. Again, this is the newer one. If you have 32-bit MMD, then you'll want 32-bit MME, and we'll get into that. That's probably a level 3 thing, but it's very good to have. And if you have a 64-bit, then you'll want the 64-bit of MME as well. If you mix and match, it won't work, so don't do that. Mogface and Nips is part of a bigger thing, which is more along the lines of level 4 or 5. Personally, I've tried it. I think it has its uses, but I'm not sure it's all that useful in general. So, if you want to use it, I will eventually talk about it, but I won't really recommend it. Like, it exists. I'll talk about it. I will cover it. If you want to play around with it, go ahead and get it. But it's less than ideal. So it's kind of up to you if you want to get that or not. Blender, that'll be kind of an extra topic. If you get Blender, get MMD tools for Blender, because Blender does not come with an MMD exporter or importer. You will need MMD tools to make Blender do anything for you as far as MMD is concerned. So again, if you want it, go ahead and get it. It's free. I mean, everything here is free. But as far as this course is concerned, I won't really go into Blender as one of the main topics. It'll be an extra topic if I do it. Moving is kind of like a counterpart to MMD. They don't work together. They're sort of, you use one or the other, and they have different functionality, but honestly, I don't use MMM. It talks about here it's kind of a competitor to MMD. Has some features not available in MMD. But if you save something in MMD, it won't open in MMM. They don't use the same file types as far as the files, but you can use the same motions and models in both programs. So you can make a video in one and then remake it in the other, but you can't just make the video in one thing, save it, and then open that save file in another one. You can't do that. So that's kind of extra. If you want to toy around with it, go ahead, but I won't really cover it. So you can skip that. GIMP is useful. It's kind of like free Photoshop. I may go into it a little bit, not really though. I'm not planning on it particularly. So you can kind of skip that. But again, free Photoshop. Like, if you want to go into it, go for it. Audacity, I would definitely say do. Just because WAV files are kind of important. So I will go into that one. So I would get that. I wouldn't worry about this. And all of this is just free accessories, stages, those kinds of things. So you can get these if you want to, but if not, you can just skip them. So the things you really want are, like, absolutely should have, are Audacity, Mmd, Pmx editor, and Mmd. And then as you're downloading those, installing those, if you need certain DLLs, you can search for them and learn Mmd. You've got a nice search place here to look for stuff. So other things are just as needed. And then, like, a lot of these are, if you want to go there, cool. But I may not talk about them. I will talk about Blender and Mmd tools a little bit as an extra topic if we get there. And I might go into the GIMP editor a little bit if we get there. So just do that. I mean, it's very simple. You just open a zip file, you save it wherever you want to. For Mmd, Pmxe, those go, wherever you want to put them, but somewhere together is nice. Mme, you'll get a few files and you'll put them in with Mmd. That way they actually, work. Folders too. As far as that's concerned, you've got tutorials on that, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. How to install Mme. Oh, well, that's unfortunate. If you have an account, no big deal, but again, you've got plenty of guides out there if you want to get more detail on how to do those. Learn MMD, of course, you're going to find those. And you've got a few more sites that want to be your guide on these journeys. Hoping this loads in a reasonable time. There we go. So yeah, whole article explaining here's the files, you want to put them here, you want to move them there, got some comments, so if you need extra help, someone else has probably already asked the question. So yeah, those are the things you want to install. Again, it's also helpful to have a files folder for your save files, a folder for backgrounds, a folder for effects, a folder for models, and a folder for motions, whether or not you use the ones that come with MMD or not. It makes it a little bit more convenient, I'd say, to put it here, but it's not particularly noticeable. So yeah, just kind of do what works for you. But I would recommend putting them all together. And as you can see, I have an old PMD editor because I updated it. I won't say recently, but I did update it in the past, I don't know, 6 months or a year. So I kept the old one just in case I couldn't find where things were. I don't think I've used it once or twice, but I've generally used the new one. and I've just got other things. This will be maybe a lesson 6 or an extra lesson because it's not super important, but there are a couple of kind of cool extra tools that exist. But again, it's not really important in the sense of making an MMD video. It's just like, hey, this is out there and it can make your life a little bit more convenient if you're doing this specific task. So yeah, that's pretty much it as far as installation goes. I will give you a general look as far as what things look like when you have installed them correctly. So when you have MMD installed properly, it will pop up like this. I mean, this moves, and we'll get into more about what everything here is. Looks a little bit complicated, but it's not as complicated as it seems. So when you have MMD installed correctly, it'll look like this. When you have MME installed, the effects stuff, you will see this little button right here, and you can press it. You won't need to mess with any of these. You'll just mess with this one. And you'll see this little box. We'll get into what all that is later. So that's what MMD will look like when you have it installed correctly. When you have the PMX editor installed correctly, if you use a 64-bit, it'll probably install both, but I'll just use this one. Isn't that cool? And boom. So yeah, and that's what it'll look like when you have this installed correctly. And again, I can go into what all this is. I'll go a brief overview with this as far as level 2 is concerned. And then in-depth videos can go more, or I can do like a side series on that program if there's interest in it. So yeah, that's kind of it as far as the installation guide is concerned. Again, if you want more detail, we can either do that. More than likely, just Google it, go through this website, and that'll be really what you want. As far as that's pretty obvious. You want everything to be PMX because it's just generically better. So yeah, that should be it. This has been kind of your overview on installation and a few good tips on just MMD life in general. So next video we will actually get into starting a level 1, very basic, very easy MMD program or MMD video. So that was it. See y'all in the next one. Bye! Pachi.
Selvi.